And now it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our second GNF presentation of this morning, and this will be dedicated to one of the to an outstanding success of one of our key members of the International Astronautical Federation, Virgin Galactic. And I'm sure you have all followed on the media what was going on recently, and we are very pleased to have here today for a session called Welcome Back to Space, an overview of SpaceShipTwo historic spaceflight, Mr. Stephen Attenborough, the commercial director of Virgin Galactic, and I would like to ask you to help me welcome him.
Galactic says it could start commercial space flights as early as next year.
3, 2, 1.
Armed. Fire.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Very good to be here. Thank you for inviting us. Make sure that works good. I don't know how many of you, like Claire and myself, walked here this morning. I wouldn't exactly call it warm, but there was definitely a little bit of spring in the air, and there is nowhere better in the world probably to be in spring than Paris. And as we were walking here and feeling and smelling and sensing that start of something new, it struck me that there was a bit of a similarity with what's happening in the world of space, because space is also in the air, and we are celebrating an amazing year, of course, 50 years since Apollo moon landings. But we're also, I think, all aware in this room that incredible things are happening in space right now, particularly this dawn of a new space age, which is led by commercial companies who are building and operating reusable vehicles. And those vehicles, we truly believe, are going to transform our business and our personal lives. So it's an exciting time to be alive. There's a lot of anxieties and worries out there in the world. We need these projects which give us optimism for the future. And we work in an industry where I believe that is definitely the case. And it's particularly good because, as we all know in this room, space is not easy. Space is really hard. That's what makes it worthwhile. It's what makes it fun at times. And it's why we, as Virgin, got involved in it in the first place, because Richard and the Virgin Group, have always loved a challenge. They've always loved to disrupt businesses that are not keeping their customers happy. We go in, we shake things up, we try and do it better. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't. But when we do succeed, we're also a company and a group that loves to celebrate. And so I hope early on this early spring morning, you will just indulge me a little bit and maybe join me to celebrate what were some huge milestones for us in the last few months, which are not just about Virgin Galactic, but they are about this future of the new space age, of the democratization of space and everything that can give us in the future. So, celebration one for us was on December the 13th, 2018, so just a few months ago, and that day had been long awaited. I started with Virgin Galactic back in 2004. That seems a long time ago. It had been many years then of perseverance, of courage, of hard work, of commitment, many good days, one or two bad days. But on December the 13th, 2018, our beautiful spaceship Unity became the first crewed vehicle built for commercial service to put humans into space, and interestingly, the first crewed space launch from US soil since 2011. So it was a pretty wonderful day for us, and in the weeks that followed, I should keep out of the way of the screen actually, but the weeks that followed, that achievement was recognized. We were able to go to Washington, D.C., where pilots, that's Forger there, and CJ, were awarded their commercial astronaut wings by the Secretary of State for Transportation at the Department of Transport in D.C. And then we were able to take the rocket motor, the hybrid rocket motor, from that historic flight, and we donated it to the Smithsonian Museum in D.C. as well. It also, for what it's worth, has the Guinness World Record for being the largest hybrid rocket motor for crewed space flights. So if you're over in DC, of course, it's a wonderful museum. It's on permanent exhibit there, so go and have a look at it. And then, of course, just a few weeks ago on February the 22nd, we did it again. You know, every test flight we do is a little different. We're trying new things. We're flying new profiles. There's a long list of test points that we're seeking to achieve during that flight. So we flew a little higher. We flew a little faster. We broke Mach 3 for the first time. But perhaps the most interesting and gratifying and exciting thing about that flight was that we, for the first time, had non-pilots involved and on board. So, as well as the two pilots at the front who flew the flight that day, we had somebody in the back. Her name was Beth Moses. She is our chief astronaut trainer. She is going to be putting our customers, our future astronauts, through their training when they come to fly with us. And so it was right that she had the first try, if you like, to evaluate the cabin experience. So she was the first non-pilot crew on a commercial space flight. She was also, nicely, the first female to space on a commercial vehicle. And I think if there is any doubt of what this experience is going to be like for all of us who hope to fly in the future, you just need to look at her face there as she looked out of the window for the first time as the spaceship coasted into space. I mean, she has done a lot of stuff in her life, but this blew her away, as you can see from her face. I should mention as well, just to give the pilots some credit, that our chief pilot was flying that flight as well, Dave Mackay. He is a very proud Scotsman. I think it's true to say he became the first Scottish-born astronaut. And so as he landed, we celebrated that little achievement with something you don't see very often in Mojave. Particularly on a cold winter's morning, but a piper playing Scotland the Brave, of course, as Dave landed and came back to see us all. So that was a terrific moment. If I can go back then. And then just 2 Saturdays ago, I think, we were in New York. I don't know how many of you were at the Explorers Club, maybe some people there. They held their 115th annual dinner there. And Dave, who is the guy on the right-hand side, the pilot, took that Explorers Club flag, the flag that has been to the North Pole, the South Pole, the top of Everest, the bottom of the ocean. You know, he took that to space with him, and so we were able to present that back to the Explorers Club a couple of Saturdays ago, in the presence, actually, of 10 Apollo astronauts, which was a fabulous occasion. So anyway, so that is our little bit of celebration, and I hope you share that with us as something which is not just about putting pilots into space or a spaceship. It's about putting a vehicle into space which has the capability of truly democratizing space. Because if we go back 14 years, and you can do that, take a step back sometimes and sort of consider why we went into this in the first place. There's the piper again. We went into space because, we, as a consumer brand, Richard always wanted to go to space. Richard Branson wanted to go to space. He believed a lot of people wanted to go into space. It became very evident that it was unlikely, that most of us were going to have that, or probably any of us really were going to have that opportunity. So we wanted to do something about that. I talk about Virgin Galactic all around the world, and two things that impress me. One is that I've never found anything which is so inspirational as human spaceflight. It gets something deep inside us going. And the other thing is, I always ask 2 questions when I go and do these talks. I won't do it today because I think I know what the answer would be. But those 2 questions are, with a couple of caveats on safety and cost. How many people would like to experience space? Just about everybody in every room, whether they are school kids in Australia or CEOs in New York, they will put their hands up with a yes. People want to do this. They know it's a fabulous experience. There is this desire on behalf of most people to explore and discover, to see what lies over the horizon. You then ask the second question, is that how many people in the audience expect to become astronauts? You're very lucky if one person puts their hand up. So that is the reason that we went into this business, and that remains today. It's still only 572 people that have ever been. I'm really pleased to say that 5 of them are now employees of Virgin Galactic, and I think we're going to see that number change dramatically over the coming months and years. So that was the reason we went into business in the first place. The other reason, though, was that, like all Virgin businesses, we need to know that there is a bigger why to this business, that it has to have greater importance than just sort of short-term business success. And so we call that our purpose, and I think, again, that all of us in this room will not find it difficult to understand what that purpose of democratizing, of opening space is. We express it like this, that together we open space to change the world for good. Together is really important. As I say, space is hard. You're not going to get there if you work in a silo. You need to be collaborative. You need to bring the best people, the best partners, the best collaborators on board. The opening space thing, of course, is very significant. We look at space really as still being a very narrow, exclusive, slightly treacherous path. And what we're trying to do, and I'm sure Elon and Jeff Bezos would say the same, is to widen that path into a broad highway which is available to everybody. And the reason that we do that is because we believe that space matters more than ever in terms of its capability to help solve some of the biggest challenges we have here down on planet Earth in the coming decades. And so that is important. And I think one of the things that brings us our customers, brings us fantastic staff to work in the desert in Mojave, is that sort of deep satisfaction which comes from knowing that you are planting seeds, which will grow into trees, which will provide shelter and bear fruit for future generations. We may not even see it ourselves, and that is exciting, and it's worthwhile, and it helps us to get this hard job done. We also look back, at our milestone celebrations, such as we had, in the last couple of months or so. And it's a chance just to review where we came from and whether we still, which things we think we got right, which things we think we got wrong. And we look back to something I'm sure a lot of you here will remember, that amazing day in 2004, SpaceShipTwo winning the X Prize, Virgin saying, let's seize this opportunity, we'll work with Burt Rutan and see whether this funny little prototype, which did something amazing, can be commercialized and help to change the world. And as we look at the reasons why we chose that, where we chose that system, I think we still believe today more than ever that it was a really good system for this purpose. It is uniquely fit for purpose. It is elegant. It is capable of flying repeatedly with levels of safety that are acceptable and the possibility of commercial viability. And those things are really, really important if we're going to have a burgeoning and flourishing commercial space industry in the future. And so let me just take you through that, and either as a future passenger or just to remind you of why that system, we believe is so elegantly designed. The first, of course, is that it's a runway takeoff. It's a horizontal system, an air launch system. And so when you come to us and you fly with us from Spaceport America in New Mexico, you're going to come to the spaceport after 3 days of training very early in the morning. And then after putting your spacesuits on, you'll climb aboard Unity. And as the sun rises, you're going to have that beautiful takeoff in the spaceship attached to the mothership. And you're going to be climbing up to about 45,000 feet. And that is an important moment, I think, because it will enable you to rehearse everything you've been told, the preparation, the training. It'll be a period of quiet contemplation, I think, or maybe noisy excitement, who knows, as you sort of achieve that first stage. And you're achieving that first stage very, very safely. We know how to fly to 45,000 feet regularly, reliably, safely, cheaply, efficiently. And so we love the air launch system. We think that was a really good way of doing this. Then, of course, comes the moment when the pilots in the spaceship out front of you will turn around and say, is everybody ready to go? Everybody at that stage is going to say, absolutely. And the pilots in the carrier aircraft will press the button. You'll float away from the carrier aircraft, a little sinking feeling in your stomach. You'll be going pretty slowly at that rate, at that stage, maybe 150 knots or so into the glide, but very rapidly everything in your world is going to change because the hybrid rocket motor behind your head is going to fire. So from a very slow glide, you will be at the speed of sound in 7 or 8 seconds. You'll be accelerating straight upwards then at about 4 Gs up to 3 times the speed of sound. And that is going to be an amazing, amazing ride. Beth, the pilots, always say to me, that we spend a lot of time talking to our customers about the views of Earth and the weightlessness. They say, you really should talk more about the rocket ride because that surge of energy, that longitudinal energy that just keeps on surging through the spaceship and through your body, is really something to behold. Once the rocket motor is switched off, once we have enough speed to coast up to our desired apogee, to the maximum altitude, then, of course, this other feature, which was such a genius sort of idea on behalf of Burt Rutan for safe, repeatable re-entry, the way that the spaceship changes its shape in space, the tail booms coming up to about 60 degrees to the fuselage to allow that shuttlecock or that birdie effect to control stability. And to create drag as the vehicle re-enters the Earth's atmosphere without a computer having to do that or without a pilot having to fly a particular profile. That was an amazing idea. It works incredibly well. It's beautifully stable. It does the job, spot on, and will enable us, to fly these spaceships many, many times. And with a very high degree of confidence that most difficult part of spaceflight in some ways with reusable vehicles coming back into the Earth's atmosphere, is taken care of. And then, of course, while the pilots are feathering the wings into the re-entry configuration, you as a passenger will be having, I think, the moment of your lifetime because as you saw from Beth's face, as you release your seat belts and just put one finger on the side of your seat and you just float into the large cabin and up into one of the many windows, you're going to have that view which we have heard so much about from the professional astronauts of the past. It is profound, it's life-changing. You recognize that we are, as Richard says, we are fellow passengers on Spaceship Earth, that there's so much more that unites us than divides us, and the planet is beautiful, but it's fragile. And that, has always been an important part of our mission. Yes, space tourism, as it's called, is a readily available market. That's important. It enables us to start our business. But I think never have we needed, as a global population, to spread that planetary perspective as much as we do today. And so we are very excited about being able to do that to many, many people. And just, sorry, I should have pressed the button earlier. I got too excited. But there's a little clip there of Beth in the back as the spaceship it was in space just a few weeks ago. And then, of course, on the way back, rather than the traditional parachutes, we have a beautiful winged vehicle which acts as a very dynamic, safe, high-altitude glider, returns you safely to Mother Earth for a smooth runway landing. The other thing that I think when we look back at some of the incredible things that have happened, when you start out on journeys that have purpose but take courage and perseverance, it's amazing how many people come and say, we'd like to be part of this journey with you. New Mexico did that back in 2005. They then built Spaceport America. Right now, because we are in that transition phase, we hope from test flight to commercial service. We are now putting the interiors in, so the astronaut lounges and everything else that's going to be needed in order to host and to train and prepare our customers for spaceflight. And so we are delighted that that's going to be our first home. It is a building which is truly fit for purpose again and commensurate, if you like, with the incredible journeys that these people are going to be having. And a little bit of a view there of the Foster & Partners design building down in New Mexico. If ever any of you are in that part of the world, make sure you go and have a look because it is incredibly impressive. And even more so now that it's going to be kitted out inside. So what's happening right now at Virgin Galactic? We are celebrating milestones, but they are just milestones. We all realize at Virgin that space is definitely a journey rather than a destination. It's got some interesting milestones along the way, and we've certainly had a couple of those in the last few weeks. So we'll be doing more test flights. We need to show not that we can go to space once or twice successfully, but that we can do it repeatedly before we start commercial service. And so we'll be doing more of those flights in the coming months. In the meantime, in Mojave, we have a fleet of vehicles that are being built. There you can see actually the next two on the production line, plus White Knight and Unity in the background. And so, the key to commercial viability is to be able to fly regularly, and the key to being able to fly regularly is to have a great reusable vehicle, but actually more than one of them. So we will have a small fleet operating from New Mexico, and those vehicles are now in course of production. and a little bit of time lapse there, which shows at least some of the building of our first spaceship. I've left this almost to the end, actually, but we are a consumer brand, and we went into this, not as a sort of engineering for the sake of engineering, or milestones for the sake of milestones. We went into this business because we wanted to fly people to space. And I think, unlike a lot of companies, we decided to open our doors to customers very, very early on in the process. And then we've taken them into the tent. We've learnt from them. We have got a better business. We've got a better spaceship because of those customers. There are about 600 now from 60 countries around the world. And we are now in the course of starting to transition the first of those customers to fly. We're working with Under Armour, for example, to create the flight suits for those customers, as well as the uniforms for our staff. We're going through the process to make sure that we have conditions of carriage, the informed consent, all the regulatory and legal documentation so that they are ready to fly, and putting into place that customer journey down in New Mexico, which will take them to their space flight and beyond. We also do some other cool things because this is something which I think will stay with people for the rest of their lives. We have a great partnership with Land Rover, who have very kindly designed with us something called the Astronaut Edition Range Rover, which is only available to Virgin Galactic future astronauts, and those are starting to roll through the factory now. And I have to say, I think the coolest set of wheels on Earth, actually, other than the spaceship, of course. But it's not just about customers. Some of you probably saw that on those 2 space flights, we actually carried science payload, research payload, from the fantastic NASA Flight Opportunities Program. I think there were a few of us at Virgin Galactic who were sort of very pleased to say that we had our first revenue-generating flight. It may not have been a lot of revenue, but it was revenue, and that is very important. It's been a long time coming. We deliberately built this spaceship. It's without its interior. It looks a little bit rough around the edges at the moment. We're fitting the interior right now, actually. But we took that payload and demonstrated to the research and science market that this is not just about space tourism. We have an incredible platform for science research, which is repeatable and affordable, and also potentially has humans in the loop. So that is another business that we hope to see develop in the coming months and years. So just to finish with, back to Unity herself. She's an amazing vehicle, and she has to do a lot of things well, repeatedly, that have never been done before. And we spend most of our time at Virgin Galactic making sure that we get that first step right, that we can go into business, start to fly our first customers, and we can do it safely in a commercially viable environment. But there is another reason why a winged vehicle was a good choice for Virgin Galactic. We love airlines. We've been operating airlines around the world for many years now. I think we're aware, like many other people, that we've been punching our way through the atmosphere at about Mach 0.8 using fossil fuels for too long. And so the experience that we gain in turning around winged vehicles rapidly, regularly, flying non-professional people in high-G and micro-G environments, we think is a useful and an interesting first stage to certainly one of our dreams. I don't know how long it will take to materialize, of being able to really look at the next stage of transcontinental aviation and the future, which is, I know, very attractive to any of us here who travel much, of Paris to Sydney in less than a couple of hours is an appealing one. So, we're not there yet, clearly, but we are taking a first step which could lead us there, and that is important and that is exciting. So I just wanted to finish this morning by saying thank you very much for your time and attention. I hope you have a great conference. I'd like to play one film. It is a little longer than I would normally play at a conference, but it was, again, celebrating that first space flight, and I hope, narrated by Richard Branson, I hope sort of sums up a lot of what I've been saying today. So let's have a look at this, and then I will step down.
A letter to my grandchildren. My dad, your great-granddad, was an extraordinary man, full of wise words. He would often remind me that life is wonderful, and it is that simple truth which has driven me as I built businesses, raised my family, and embarked upon my many adventures. You are at the very start of life. It is an incredible gift, and it is there for the taking. It will deliver highs and lows, but by living it to the full, by always trying to do the right thing, and by keeping a childlike sense of adventure, it will indeed be wonderful. I used to think of space as a destination, but I now realize it's a journey with some amazing milestones along the way. Your lives will be transformed by space, and it will give your generation the planetary perspective on which the future of humanity rests. That we're all in this together, fellow travelers on Spaceship Earth. Today we pass the most significant of them all, as our beautiful VSS Unity, along with the hopes and dreams of so many, became the first spaceship built for regular passenger service to put humans into space.
Five, 3, 2, 1. Release, release, release. Fire, fire.
Good control. "55 seconds. 58 seconds. Motor shutdown. Mach 2.8.
Right motor burn, everybody. We're going to space, Richard.
264,000 feet. Welcome to space, Unity.
The view is incredible. Check that out. We can see Mexico. Spaceship Unity, welcome to space. Copy, base. $1 million view. At the G.
Virgin Galactic has shown that when you set off on challenging but important adventures, exceptional people come forward to join the journey. People who are consistently by your side and on your side. People who share your dreams and people who help make them reality.
Rolling to the right. Complete.
As I watch Unity and her brave pilots soar upwards into space today, my vision blurred by tears, I could hear your great-granddad whisper once again in my ear. Life is indeed wonderful.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I must say that I've actually never experienced such a totally silent audience, and that just I mean, you could hear a needle fall, I think, and it just says how inspirational these pictures are. Thank you very much for your presentation, and thanks to you and to Virgin Galactic for bringing to reality what still some time ago was still in the area of science fiction. We have time for maybe 2 or 3 questions, if there are, in the audience. Yeah, I see.
Thank you. Congratulations for this presentation. I'm Antoine Meunier from the Espace and Exploration magazine. Could you tell us more about your next test flight? When will it be?
So right now we're in that period following test flight where we're doing a lot of reviews. So there's obviously very thorough vehicle inspections. We have a huge amount of data that comes off the flight, and so we're going through that data right now. We're comparing it with our models, and we're working out what we need to do next and when. So one of the things that we are doing now is to fit the cabin interior. So we had a little bit of interior when Beth flew in the back. We want to fit the rest of it now. So that will happen along with anything else that we need to do with the vehicle, sort of following that data review and the vehicle inspection. So it's a little early to say when the next flight's going to be, but we'll get back into the air and to space as soon as we possibly can to do those remaining flights that we need to do before we can enter commercial service with confidence.
Will it take place this year or in?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I mean, that would certainly be the expectation.
Do you have an estimation for the opening of the future commercial flights?
So one of the things that we have learnt over 14 years is don't give dates of estimated commercial service. We're now wise. But we're getting there. We're making some big steps. So we're cautiously optimistic. That's all I'll say.
Thank you very much. It was a fantastic presentation. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was wondering on the videos when you see looking back at the horizon, we see some flecks of debris coming off the spacecraft.
Yeah.
Is it paint? What is it? Have you analyzed it?
Yeah. I mean, this is. Will either be ice or there is some sort of crystal formed right at the back of the rocket motor that just comes off as the vehicle is coasting up. So nothing to worry about.
There is one, maybe 2 last questions here, and then we can close.
Good morning. First of all, thank you very much for that wonderful presentation. Arfan Chowdhury from the UK Space Agency.
Hi.
Can you say a little bit more about your intent regarding future spaceports and locations?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that we like about the system, have always liked about the system, is that it is mobile. I mean, we have an aircraft which can effectively take the spaceship to anywhere in the world, and we also are not constrained by vertical launch ranges and all the issues around them. And so the intention, as you'll know well, has always been that all other things being equal, we would love to be able to operate these vehicle pairs from multiple countries around the world eventually. It is definitely a step at a time, and we have New Mexico as our hub. We will be starting in New Mexico. But if we are able to find other places in the world, we're able to pass the necessary regulatory sort of hurdles to get take the vehicles out of the US, then it still remains our intention to fly from different places. I think the reason for that is that you'll get different views from different parts of the world. It enables this business to grow and be more successful. It enables us to share that planetary perspective with greater numbers of the population. So, I don't know, where or when the second home will be, but we definitely have a system which is, sort of built for flying from different places. And it definitely remains within our vision. I think one of the really gratifying things is that there are a lot of countries around the world that are starting to think about that. I'm pleased the UK is one of them, of course. What is obviously required is making sure that there is a suitable regulatory framework, and that's one of the great things about doing business in the US right now, is that regulatory framework is in place, and without it, it's very difficult to do. So I think countries are starting to think about how they might apply something similar, and then looking for locations, and then sort of working out the best way to bring the vehicles in. So we'll see, but I think the trajectory is good.
Thank you. I think we have one last question here, and then we need to close.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
It was really inspiring, of course, especially the message of Sir Richard Branson, who really personally is behind, I think, a lot. And I wanted to ask a question on that aspect. Can you describe what positive influence having such a charismatic leader is for your company, the people in the company, the culture of the company? Could you maybe go a little bit into kind of the social structure of the company?
I mean, that's another hour's presentation at least, I think. How do I start to answer that? I mean, I think there are a lot of things that are inherent in Virgin's culture that has made this possible, really. I mean, as I try to say, I mean, firstly, Richard likes to go into businesses where disruption is required, and it's a very entrepreneurial structure. So we are used to things being tough. We're used to the world of startup, but we also have this very strong sense of what the brand means. The values, the way that we try to shake things up. And so I think everybody that works for us, sort of understands that, and there is a permission which comes with that to do business in a particular way. If you look at the airline example, when Virgin Atlantic started, it really was just empowering those people who were in the front line, the people that welcome you onto the plane or, give you your boarding pass, just to operate as human beings, and to install that culture which, as consumers we enjoy, and so that there is that permission that we have, to do things in a way which suits you. We try and mold jobs around the people. We also announce early and tell the story warts and all. We have early customers, as I said. All those sort of things are encouraged, and I think have enabled us to get through, what's quite a long period of time now, and just tick off the milestones one by one. Clearly, in 2014, we had a really bad day with the test flight accident. Richard definitely led from the front on that occasion, which he's very good at doing. Rather than being a leader that sort of stays in the shadows for a few days until everything calms down, he was up there within a few hours and led from the front. And and reassured staff that that we would learn from, and the world in general, but reassured us that we would learn from this accident, but that we wouldn't be defined by it, that we would become better, and that we would find out what we needed to find out and carry on and achieve our dreams. So, I mean, a very inspirational leader. A great guy to work for, and I think we all feel we're part of an important story, which sort of helps on the days where things get frustrating as they do in any role. So.
Well, once again, thank you very much, and please join me in giving a round of applause to Stephen. Thanks.
Thank you.
We stay tuned for your next adventures. Thanks you.